Let me show you what's going on. That's what's going on near me. The reason I cut to that shot, I just missed the action. He was blasting so many leaves. It was there were a lot of them. Semi-impressive. Let's talk about what's going on over here. I've shot some video to share with you in just a moment. So I've been down here for about 2 hours and I've worked my way around the Snohomish area. Yes, the river has definitely come up since yesterday. Last night we had the atmospheric river, which was at least 1,000 miles of warm air and rain and clouds that came really quickly through the area. When I say quickly, it was over a period of hours, but the clouds were just hauling. I was out there last night taking pictures. The moon was out. You could see the moon was gone, the moon was out. It's because the clouds were just, there would be big gaps of clear sky, but then these just dramatic looking clouds would suddenly fill that same area in just a few, less than a minute later. So things were really flying by. So I am going to go to my comments page. So I'm connecting to the comments now. So if you are commenting, I should be able to see them shortly. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and show you some video that I've shot. I started shooting this about 2 hours ago, but it's going to give you a good view of what's going on here. So you can see as the this wide shot from the bridge here in downtown, you can see there's a lot of debris coming down. This is really common when we have floods. Just a lot of debris that's been near the river's edge comes down. And this was a first for me though. We actually have a boat coming down. And when they're, look, what's going on? Cheryl, nice to have you here. Thank you. Well, I've been down here at the Snohomish River doing this videography, and I was about to mention this boat. This is the first time, Cheryl, I've seen a boat during one of these flooding events. So I kept rolling on this shot for a couple of reasons. Number one, maybe someone locally, you'll recognize your boat. I think you're even going to get a good shot of the unique identifying number on the side there coming up. Second reason I hung on to this shot is I'm always curious as to what might be inside something like this when you have a moment like this. So if it's your boat, maybe you want to go down toward the mouth of the Snohomish River, because that's where it's destined to go. Speaking of the mouth of the Snohomish River, that's in Puget Sound, and high tide is at 3:30 today. And so that's about just under an hour away. We're at 2:37 Pacific Standard Time as we look into that boat. And when the tide is high, the river definitely comes up. So when we have this flooding event plus a high tide, that's just going to push the river levels up even higher. So you're looking, this was just down below me from where I'm standing right now along First Street. The Riverwalk path is, there it is. You can see the river is not up crossing the path as it sometimes does. And there's a height marker on that building those people were standing next to that shows the height of historic floods. The trail says closed at the south end, the Riverwalk trail. But indeed, people are walking up and down it, and I see no water over it as I've been here today. This fella appears to be without a home beneath that restaurant. Here's a wider shot as we go from where the restaurant is and where that person is beneath the restaurant to just how close the river is. Thomas, nice to have you here. And the awning is gone from this shop this morning along First Street. And when we arrived here, before I had the camera rolling, there was a truck with a crane and it was taking away the awning. I can only assume, which can be dangerous to assume of course, that was damage caused by last night's, the overnight winds that we had in the area. Tom, feel free to comment about what it was like on Whidbey Island last night. For those of you who don't know, Whidbey Island is a bit west of here. As the crow flies, probably about 15 miles at most. And I would imagine that the winds were pretty intense there overnight. Whidbey Island and much of central Puget Sound was spared a lot of the heavy rain, and that is because of the rain shadow effect. But outside of central Puget Sound, there was a lot of precipitation, a lot of snow in the mountains, and some really heavy rains outside of the central area of Puget Sound within Washington State and down into Oregon too, I believe. So that atmospheric river really did a number. But because we were spared a lot of the heavy rains in Snohomish County, this river, the Snohomish River, and let's go back live to it. is not going to rise as much. Now we have had warmer air, and because we've had warmer air, that's going to cause some snow melt, and so there's a lot that's going to be coming down the river from beyond Snohomish County as well. So we're going to keep an eye on it. Things can change radically, but this flood watch is in effect until tomorrow, and it's not expected, the Snohomish River anyway, to rise dramatically, but we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll go ahead and just replay for those of you who joined late. We'll just show you some of the footage that I've shot over the past 2 hours. Cheryl says, wind was loud last night and plenty of rain. Remind me where you're at, Cheryl. And Tom says, super windy and lost the island lost power. Wow, when you say the island, I think you mean what you say, the absolute definitive declarative statement, the entire island. Whidbey Island's a long island, more than 50 miles long. I think at one point in Western Washington there were over 300,000 people or customers without power, and in Snohomish County I know it was well over 100,000, and they've been continuing to, with utility companies, to work on that throughout the day. Driving down here, I was at intersections to include right here in Snohomish where there were no traffic lights. I'm looking now at Avenue D and First Street, and the traffic light is working, so that's good news. Don't believe it was a couple of hours ago. When I was on Highway 9, traffic lights were not at Broadway, were not working, if I recall correctly. And here's that boat coming at us again. Somebody lost their boat. Get a good look at it, see what's inside. If you're looking for it, head to the mouth of the Snohomish River. Cheryl, you're in BC, Canada. We're in British Columbia. I was just watching a really good presentation this morning from Randy Small live on Facebook, who was presenting, I believe he's in Linden, about just the impact of the Fraser Valley on Whatcom County weather and Mountain Baker weather, where they had tremendous amounts of world record-setting amounts of snow, and that's in large part due to the Fraser River Valley. Tom says no power this morning for the first few hours. Cheryl says the lights flickered and they didn't go out. So yeah, damp surroundings all around here, including for that gentleman beneath that restaurant, the fish and chips place. Used to be called Fish House Charlie's, but I believe it was, but I never can remember the new name. So yeah, and then the awning off the shop here on First Street. So feel free, if you're just joining, to go ahead and tell me what the weather is like where you're at, no matter where you're at around the world. And if you're especially in Western Washington, it'd be really interesting to hear your reports of what you went through. I know that in Lake Stevens, for example, which is just north of here, there were so many branches and just carpets of leaves on streets there. I saw one photo last night where a car tried to continue down the road by going over a tree, and it topped out on it and got stuck. I'm told the person wasn't hurt. So I don't know if the driver was aware of the tree in the road, but that picture told a lot about what was happening up in the Lake Stevens area last night. We'll go back to the live picture. You can see there's a really large tree/log just going by now. So it's the proverbial box of chocolates when you're out here. You never know what you're gonna get. You're near White Rock, okay, excellent. You know, the first time I went to White Rock was back in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s. I was in college, and I went across the border when I was at Western Washington University, and I'm going to tell you, crossing the border was a lot easier back in those days to go to White Rock. And I know they've shot a lot of several television programs in the White Rock area. The TV series Psych, just across the U.S. border in White Rock, was shot in White Rock, and they tried to pretend it was California. Sunny right now, Cheryl says, in White Rock. Well, good to know. I'll just turn this camera, show you what it looks like down here. You can see on the left, live look where the awning no longer exists. Going handheld here for a moment, and then we'll bring it back to the river. 48 degrees in Ohio, with 26-mile-per-hour winds. Oh, in Oak Harbor. I was like, Tom, why are you telling me about Ohio? I've got a daughter who lives in Ohio, so that's why my mind went there. So, of course, if you're on Whidbey Island, OH is Oak Harbor. So that's the north end of the island, near the naval air station. Where I live in Snohomish, above the valley near Glacier Peak High School, we heard a distant tree, suddenly split, crack, what have you. We heard some loud bangs, which I'm pretty sure were distant transformers blowing up. I went out and I did a walk, and I could see in a few places where the sky would just light up. These were transformers that were blowing. I actually contemplated getting in the car and driving to Springhetty Road at the south end on the hill so that we could capture some of the transformers, some of those light flashes. But I decided just to stay put. I did it just walking. I didn't want to take the risk of driving because of down lines and things like that. You got to weigh the risk sometime. And historically, I go out and that stuff. But I've had a few things that didn't go my way, and I just figured I'd played safe and take the same advice I would give other people. So, but I will tell you that there was one moment where I looked to the north, and I swear the sky, probably from Everett, Snohomish, Lake Stevens, Marysville, Tulalip, it just seemed to all light up. So that was a major transformer explosion, or whatever you want to call it. That's what it appeared to be. I could not believe, just on that particular flash, how much of the sky before me, such a wide area, lit up as I looked to the north. Cheryl says lots of people out and about, good for them. Guess they aren't interested in the river right now. And Cheryl says, good that you are. Well, I tell you what, Cheryl, there have been a lot of people are talking about the river. I even heard someone walking by talking about the atmospheric river, which was kind of cool to hear, because that's not usually the common speak. But more and more people are getting informed about how our weather works, and that was such a term used as the days approached towards today, about what was all heading towards the Pacific Northwest. One map that I shared from a gentleman who is a meteorologist in Portland showed that atmospheric weather across the across the Pacific, beginning just east of Guam. So that was a lot of warm air. In fact, last night when I was out and about, it was 58 degrees Fahrenheit. This morning, midday, 10, 11 o'clock, I think we were at 40 something. So the day didn't warm up, it only cooled down. The night was actually warmer as we had that warm air blasting through on that atmospheric river from across the Pacific. So with that, I'll just check your comments. Let's see, I'm gonna just, we'll read it live here. Tom, thank you for your comment. Looks like you're gonna ask a question. Mark, do you know what is called this week when it was raining everywhere except for a drying ring around Seattle? Heard it on Como, but can't remember. Yes, Tom, it was a rain shadow. And the National Weather Service did a tweet, and I retweeted it, and I included it in yesterday's video that I put on my Facebook page and YouTube. It showed a satellite map, and it showed all the moisture coming in, and there's this moment where you see like this small hole or clearing right over Seattle, and then you see that hole widen, that clear space. So what was happening was, as the clouds and the moisture were coming in off the Pacific, I presume it's the Olympics, I don't know what else could cause it, historically that's what it does, is it acts as a wall, and all that moisture and those clouds go around, and then they reunite east of here, basically. So we basically were the center hole in a donut with all the heavy rain going on outside of the central Puget Sound region. So again, it spared us of the heavy rains in the central Puget Sound region, but we weren't spared of the winds. We certainly still had some high winds. And I remember one of the tweets I retweeted said, when we were hours away, said, expect the sudden arrival of heavy winds right around 10 o'clock. And I'll tell you what, that was right on the mark because it was like someone flipped a switch. And just like that, we had heavy winds in the area. And as my mom, who was English, used to say when I was a kid, pop, bang, wallop. won't mean anything to most of you, but fireworks. Let's put it that way. Fireworks. Oh, there you go. Tom says, cool, you will look for it. Yeah, you know, even back in high school, I went to Cascade High School here in South Everett, and we learned about the rain shadow effect. That was something that was taught, and imagine is still taught in schools in Western Washington. And it's the same thing that impacts Eastern Washington, Central Washington, you know. The clouds, the moisture hit the Cascades, and the Cascades will tear into those clouds, absorb a lot of the moisture, and shred those clouds so that you get a lot more clear, you know, sunny blue days in Central Washington. That's why you've got that upper Sonoran Desert there. And just a second, my assistant, my 11-year-old assistant has just shown back up and is pointing at my cameras, and I'm trying to figure out what he's doing. He likes taking pictures too, so that's cool. In fact, you saw him for just a moment in the video. Let's see, 23 Skidoo. Okay, got it, Tom. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up. I think the sun's getting a little squirrely, and I've basically been able to convey what we've been seeing here today. So just the headlines: flood watch for the Snohomish River through tomorrow, I believe. And it's not even up across the river path, the Riverwalk path here. High winds overnight in this area in Central Washington, central region of Puget Sound, I should say, not Central Washington. But we didn't get a lot of heavy rains here, but outside of Central Puget Sound area, there were heavy rains. So we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll continue to update. 2 days ago, we told you we would keep an eye on it and report back. That's what we've done today. We followed through. I hope you appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Take care, everybody.